I needed my own special binder. I make it no secret that I have experienced a rather disproportionate amount of pain in my life. If you were in attendance for my sermon last month, you might already be thinking, oh, please do not talk about your brain and mental health again. But sorry, not sorry. You're going to get a little more of that story as I get to the good stuff. I've fallen down what I call the pit of despair so many times, trying to crawl my way up the sides and almost making it over the lip, but then lose my grip and slide back down again. Reaching the rock bottom of the pit is unlikely to be survivable the longer you're down there, and I know in my bones how close I've come to just quietly imploding into dust. But by virtue of me standing up here right now, you already know that my story hasn't ended down there. My therapist likes to remind me that I've clawed up from the depths each and every time I thought I wouldn't. Not necessarily over the top, but I've always ended up finding a ledge to cling to with a lot of help and support from others. Learning how to live again isn't a simple linear process, and anyone who tells you that once you reach higher ground, you can never fall down the pit again probably does not know what they're talking about. But my sermon today isn't about the bottom of the pit. Rather, it's about what I learned about myself, love, the world, and how we get to reclaim some power and agency when we choose to notice the little things that make life beautiful, fun, and worth living. In 2023, my good friend Liz made a New Year's resolution to record and show others what they called their year of happy. Their story isn't mine to tell, but they were living in their own pit too. The premise of the year of happy sounded simple. Each and every day, they would write down and take a picture of something that brought them even the smallest modicum of joy. They posted it every day on social media, complete with the year of happy hashtag, and a very loyal fan base of friends who were distantly located around the country. They wanted to remind others, too, that life can still be wonderful. I asked Liz if they wanted to say something about their idea directly, and they wanted me to convey that even though we can have very little control over our emotions or the things that happen around us and to us, we always have the opportunity to add joy. It doesn't replace or extinguish anything else of what we're going through, but adding it into our days, our weeks, our months, and our lives feels like it can only do good. It ties into the idea that the grass is greenest where you water it. We can't pick how we feel, but we can pick what we amplify. Thank you, Liz. Joy is not just experiencing happiness, although the two are often very interlinked. A quote that stuck with me is that happiness is based on what's happening around us. Joy is based on what's happening inside of us. Looking for joy is a true practice, something you must cultivate within yourself and actively do. It's a participatory thing. I think that most everyone has experienced times of just trudging through life with our heads down and our minds clouded by the complexities of adult life in varying degrees of severity. So many of us stop laughing and playing and giving ourselves over to awe. Noticing the joys in our lives takes conscious effort when we're used to the passive habit of letting the world happen to us. As Liz's year progressed, I saw what they noticed and realized and worked on, and how much of a difference it made in their life. So I was inspired to start my own daily practice for 2025, which I called my silly little joys. I'm not normally one to do New Year's resolutions because if somebody or something tells me to do something, then I get a little stubborn and don't do it. But I thought this one felt really right. I specifically wanted for myself to notice and call out the things that evoke play, goofiness, and absurdity, and not just proper adult joys full of peace and quiet serenity. I especially delight in experiences that make me snort laugh, cackle like a hyena, Or if it's all I can muster, that little small amused puff of air from your nostrils and a tiny twitch of the lips. I made sure to start it by allowing grace for myself, knowing that would all backfire if I let myself be filled with guilt and shame for things as simple as not making a little Facebook post with a sentence. I had to consciously remind myself that even if I missed a day or 3 or a week or whatever, I wasn't failing, and this happened a lot. Practices and habits almost never stick if we have to punish ourselves for doing it. Starting to do this every day ended up being really critical, I think, because that January, it suddenly became clear that my time with my emotional support animal and my soulmate dog Kaya was rapidly coming to an end. She was nearing 15, and it helped me survive so many awful things that I don't talk about. She was the being I literally lived for many times. One doesn't need to be a human to know this kind of love. I said goodbye to her on March 14th, 2025, and I entered into a time of the most crushing grief I have ever experienced, and that's kind of saying a lot. I had told my spouse for years that when she went, I would go too, because I didn't know how to survive things without her and her love and care. But I held off on activating any sort of plan because I felt like experiencing this pain was worth honoring her love. Amidst this, so many aspects of my being were being targeted with hatred and disgust, and they still are. Being non-binary, autistic, and mentally ill in a time when those with power have gotten increasingly vocal about wanting to see most of us eliminated from all areas of both public and private life is, really not done anything to help things. However, I did stubbornly keep noting my silly little joys, even when they were the tiniest little minuscule brief specks of light. Because really, what was the point of me practicing for this if not for a time when I had to get through something? I may have lived in the muck at the bottom of the pit of despair, but I made myself keep going. And it turned out that those minuscule joys ended up being some of the most important in heaving myself back up the walls again. Here are a few of the little joys that I noted. The way my rainbow string lights in my bedroom would catch sparkles in a painting I made that says, "I can do all things through spite." The feel and weight of my 25-year-old worry stone as I rubbed it between my fingers and thumb. Finding a new brand of gluten-free sourdough bread and having a really good peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Watching the native bees and wasps flit around the 6 to 12-foot tall sunflowers in my garden that I grew spontaneously that year, even though I couldn't bear to be out in my yard planting anything without Kaya. And then my strange little neurodivergent family keeping our Christmas tree up through June without us saying a single word about it, and then we silently decided together it was time to take it down. And a few times, literally the only good part of my day that I had a sort of positive feeling about was watching a really lovely wood-wick candle flickering in the dark, but it counted. And I also had some big, huge joys too. We adopted 2 cats in July, Bowie and David, who are usually absolutely delightful and whose antics have brought me so much laughter. And I had top surgery last August, and I really, really can't believe it's almost been a full year, but only been a full year since I started to look and feel like me. And I just feel so much more at home in my body. The big joys may not be the ones we always experience, but for sure hold on to them when you get them. And of course, grief and suffering is not limited just to me. Sometimes looking for joy feels like sacrilege. It often feels wrong to find laughter or blissful moments as our country falls further into fascism, as genocide happens to Palestinians, as trans and non-binary people are being legally and medically erased, as Black folks continue to be murdered by the police, as threats of climate change are willfully allowed to roll towards us, and when there are people who are starving and dying of curable illnesses because we can't get past our greed. And there are so many other sorrows that we're collectively going through. But friends, let me tell you, our brains are just not built for immersing ourselves in every display of hatred and evil in the world. And we can't individually hold it all, even when there are internal and external pressures that are making us feel guilty and telling us we don't care. But for the vast majority of the 3 million years of hominin history, all the way back to our closest upright and tool-building ancestors, the Australopithecines, we've existed in small groupings of about 50 to 500 people. It was fairly possible for a lot of our history to know a good majority or all of the folks you lived in the vicinity of. Our whole worlds were intimate affairs where how quickly news got to you from other places was limited by how far one could walk in a day. Now, we live in cities of millions with 24-hour news cycles designed to keep us engaged through outrage and horror. And we have instant connectivity to almost anyone and everything. And this happened biologically in less than the blink of an eye. Of course, our empathy gets stretched. Of course, we find ourselves overwhelmed by the scope and scale of all that is happening that desperately deserves care and attention. People who've been marginalized know full well what laughing and playing in the spite of hate can feel like. As the Black poet Toy Delacorte stated, joy is an act of resistance. It's something that people and events trying to destroy others cannot truly take away. Fierce joy is audacious, and it sends a message that you will not be bowed. It's infectious. When people collectively take part in joy, we fortify our communities and positively impact how we work and be with one another. When we actively notice our joys, we are living into love that rises above fear, pain, anguish, and despair. We make room for what sustains us in an act of gratitude for experiencing life itself. We remind each other that there's beauty and wonder in the world and that it can't be squashed out of existence. Joy helps us get through heartbreak. Joy liberates us and gives us hope. I truly believe that if we are to survive amidst the things that are crumbling around us, we have to hold on to joy. We can hold the heaviness of the world and our own demons in our hearts while still holding space for love and fun, and that is okay. We can't continue a fight for a more just and equitable world if we don't tend to our own sustaining needs of finding beauty, brightness, and laughter. Coming from having multiple expiration dates planned over the years, with what felt like no hope of ever climbing out of the pit of despair, I can truly say that learning to find something even small and delightful in every day isn't just empty, trite, or meaningless. It's an act of resistance against the pull of the pit, and a measure of restoration and healing that we all so desperately need. So, take notice of your silly little joys. Play peekaboo with an inquisitive jumping spider. Collect that river rock that looks really neat when it's wet. Get caught up in an impromptu dance party, even if it's just in your chair. Have a big kid sleepover with friends and a running commentary through movies that are so bad they're good, no matter how old you are. Make some messy finger paintings, squish some mud between your fingers, and get dirty for the hell of it. Make it a point to go romping, yes, romping through a field of wildflowers. Allow a squash plant from your garden to spill over the sides of the bed and stage a war of conquest along your front yard. And for God's sake, use the fancy candles and soaps, and don't save them for some unspecified future special occasion that may never roll around. I think if we humans have a purpose at all, it's to love each other and to experience joy. I hope you go out and practice finding yours. May it be so, and blessed be.